Oh, one KaMadlala above. Some timer-ish, I forgot his name as well. Some Zulu timer. They had Lebo Mashile and they had Stogie T.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, but ABBA, yeah, he murdered it. The other guys were just there as like fans of his
Really?
whatever he had to say,
Really?
essentially.
Stogie and Lebo were out.
They were
Outshined.
there's an English word for this thing, babaza. They were just mesmerized.
For real.
Yeah. I was also really saddened, but not surprised by the lack of knowledge from Ulebo no Stogie. You know, things that you think because they are meant to be the ambassadors of what, and someone's like, did you know in Africa? It's like, what? And you're like,
How?
you don't
Taking her
know.
back.
One of the things was umakoti, makonstier, that they didn't know. There was another one where Ulebo was like, OMG, I didn't know that. I'm like, hi, Siswami. Kandile poetry shy. It was about what exactly?
But they're
The
not
reason I'm saying go
historians.
check it
They're not
out.
Historians, they're poets, though, right?
Sorry?
They're not historians, they're just poets. I mean, not just poets, they are poets.
They are poets, but they are poets that we assume are informed. And because they've been around for a while, you'd assume they'd met enough people to have picked up certain things. You know, but I'm constantly surprised by how ignorant people are about a lot of things. And you're like, okay. And these people are meant to be ambassadors of like culture and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's why even with this book, Menopause Through the Cultural Lens, it's
Yeah.
the shortest chapter. Because when I was approaching people that I thought
Limited.
would be knowledgeable,
nothing.
very limited. Others were blue ticking me. Others will straight up say, but you know what, we hardly speak about this.
Sure.
We don't know. And I'm hoping that with the next one, I would have delved.
More intel. So Abba came here to speak to us, and what's refreshing about him is unlike the other supposed African spirituality gurus, he's rooted in practicality. That's why we can speak about Ilobolo and those things, like, and he can say things like, I don't believe in this, whatever. Because the topic was preserving African language. And I think the first thing about Chamengayo was this concept of language is just meant to be a tool of articulating what we feel in our spirit. Because before language, the assumption, like animals, the assumption is that we can look at each other and feel something. And if she winks, I'm like, hey, I think she likes me without speaking. But now we found ways to articulate. And before the colonizers came, we had our ways of articulating whatever. The colonizers came with their languages, which had traveled the world. English futhi being a mixed masala. And Uaba's like, it can't be that we have an issue with just this tool that was brought of articulation. Yes, language has got cultural and what, but essentially, or he speaks about his kids, he's like, his kids can't really speak his Xhosa, but he is teaching them Xhosa cultural heritage and principles in English for them to understand. Because what's more important, the language or the understanding of the principle and the thing. And I know you and I are like coconuts and futuristic blacks. So, no, I'm just sparked by this Murube thing and the fact that you're not interested. And someone could be like, you must. And you're like, really, homie, for what? Does it add value to my life? You see, you'd be like that. And someone would be like, this guy is colonized. And it's like, you must understand our surnames or names or whatever also are colonial and they had substance. And I'd rather you call me DOP or whatever, because that speaks to my being. Whatever. Sorry. Are we waiting for anyone? We're hitting. This can't be part of the episodes. You guys didn't want us.
We said we were rolling about 15 minutes ago.
I fucking didn't hear that. Who's on that camera?
You said it before.
No.
Who's on that camera?
Well, we said we're rolling, right? No, the camera is on
But we're
its
good.
own. The camera is on its own. Oh.
Sis Xoli, KaMadlala.
Yeah.
Your book is written KaMadlala, and I want to ask the significance of that. Sorry, I need to get the voice recording before you start speaking. The horror stories I have of losing footage, where you're at a point now where you're like, no me footage as long as we have some of the audio, at least a bit of history is captured somehow. My apologies. Sis Xoli KaMadlala.
Here, the one.
The KaMadlala.
Yes.
Why KaMadlala, not just Madlala?
Because I've always been Madlala, and I think established my brand around Madlala. And KaMadlala is just taking care of the marital aspect of myself, that I'm saying that I am a married woman, but I am not using that surname because I created the brand under Xoli Madlala.
I don't understand what you're saying. KaMadlala is...
It's like Miss Madlala. I will always be a Miss Madlala. I don't know if it makes sense. Like, it's saying to people that my maiden surname, you know how they will put Nia,
Okay.
and then they put your maiden surname.
Sure.
So it's almost the same thing as that, to say that I was born a Madlala,
Yes.
but then I am married and I've got another surname.
Do you understand the significance of that in the sense that a man could say that? Does it still hold the same weight?
No.
It's only for women?
No, it's only for women. And also it depends also on the prefix of your surname.
Yeah.
So if it starts with an MA, then then you add Ga.
Ga.
Yes, but if it's any other prefix, then it's like Madlamini,
Yeah.
Mandlovu. But the Madlala, then
Oh,
you
so
have to
if
add
you
the
say
KA.
Ma Madlala, you say Ma...
It's wrong. If you say
KaMadlala.
Madlala, it has to be KaMadlala.
Oh, no, thank you.
So,
Thank you for joining us. We've got such a heavy topic for today, and I'm going to try and give it the sensitivity it deserves, and I'm hoping to give you the platform you deserve. But in the same breath, we have no need to force anything. What that means is I'd like you to take your time. I'd like you to not rush and try and cover everything. If we only cover 2 aspects, let it be 2 aspects, and then you'll come back.
okay.
Because it is that important that we shouldn't be rushing it. First question, do you have a full name? Second question is, can you please show us your book? I don't know, Sizwe, if she can show the book to this camera.
Okay.
If you can just see it, or I can bring it.
There we
And
go.
then if you can please tell us if you've got a full name and where's home. How did you get married? Siswa KaMadlala.
Okay.
KaMadlala osishi.
Hlogo Kabaldaga. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. So you happy? Thank you, sir. The Perimenopausal Globetrotte by Xoli KaMadlala. Siyabonga, sis.
So the full name is Xolisile. Xolisile Madlala. That's the only name that I have. The
Okay.
conversation that I've always had.
Xolisile apologized.
Yes.
Okay.
And I can even explain how it came about, because I'm fascinated by names. Because for a while I used to think that my name was embarrassing, because it's like, apologize for what?
What?
And my mom then explained, she fell pregnant in teenagehood, and my dad was on some like, no, she ain't mine. And then through her pregnancy, she says that she was just struggling with obviously the shame that came with the pregnancy and all of that. Most women, they thrive during pregnancy. But in her case, it was not really that case. And then she says that the moment she gave birth, then I was passed on to her. She apologized to me for the shame that she had felt and all of that, and just proclaiming her love.
Jeez.
And to me, that was like, wow, because all along I used to think that maybe she was apologizing to her parents for falling pregnant at a young age. And it's just like, no,
I'm
I was
apologizing to
to you for how I was feeling, the thoughts and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did things get better with you and your dad and your mom?
No, I never got to meet my dad. He passed on, I think, when I was 25.
That's old.
Having not met him. And the interesting part is also, growing up, I was not aware that I did not have a father, because my granddad and my uncle were such an amazing father figures in my life. So for me, fathers, it was them. Father's Day, it was them. Up until I think I was in tertiary, and then I'm from Pietermaritzburg, and I was doing in-service training. And then this young boy comes in on a Friday, and he's asking me, what's your dad's surname? I'm like, why? And he says, you fit a description of my half-sister that I'm looking for. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, I don't know what my dad's surname is, because I've never opened that chapter. I've never thought about it. Please come back on Monday. I'll find out over the weekend.
Yeah.
And that's how I initiated the conversation then at home to say, good, this other part of my DNA, who is the guy, the surname and all of that. And then they told me that the surname was Goba. And they asked, obviously, where is this coming from? Because at that time I was 19 and I had never asked anything.
Yeah.
Fast track Monday, the guy comes and he says, oh no, you're actually not my sister. I find my sister over the weekend. But then he served his purpose because then he opened that different aspect of my existence, that there's this other half of me that I have been just oblivious to.
Did you do the research beyond that, Koba? Going to find the family outside of maybe your dad?
No, for a while I continued with life. And then the other year, I think the interest then came up and I was in Maritzburg for December holidays. We're at the mall with my mom. We meet this other lady. They greet, it's like a connection of old friends.
Sure.
And then next thing she's calling to this girl and she comes over and she's like, oh, meet your half-sister. I was like, oh, interesting. And then that's how I met the first link to Gobam. We exchanged numbers, and I'm the older sister by a couple of months. So my dad was a bit of a...
Very busy. Casanova.
Kinda, yes. And then fast track, as we were talking, then she had a relationship with the Gobas, and she was even telling me that actually you look more like our other uncle more than our dad. And pandemic happened. We lost contact. I've tried to call her, and she was never on social platforms. I just know
becomes
that
difficult.
I just know that she was in Bloemfontein or so. And then I just went on Facebook for a while, just checking on random Abogoba to see if they're from Maritzburg, they'll know this person, but I did not win. And then I just kept it moving.
We're here to speak about menopause mostly. One of the dangers of podcasting and the dangers of chatting to a person like me is there are always topics that get raised that make me want to explore something. Which again, I'd like to say, if we don't cover why we're here today, I'm hoping at least there's some value in some of these deviations. My father had between 17 and 19 kids. It's one of the things that frustrates me about him, and one of what I thought was his failures in that he didn't document his kids and he didn't make a concerted effort to bring us together. And then I also have to blame the mothers because I realize mothers have a huge role in making sure kids meet their siblings, etc., or even having access to their fathers. I've met some of my siblings. I met some of them after my father passed away, also putting in the effort. And one of the things that come out to what you're saying about your sister having a relationship with Taban Bagakoba or Bagwakoba is the yearning from my half siblings in getting to know their father's side of the family, which I have a great relationship with. My uncles, my aunts, my cousins. And it's like, these are my father's children. They would love to be like, Ubabo Mncane lona, Auntie lona, this is, Mzala. And they don't have that. And outside of missing out on your dad, outside of missing out on so many other things, that becomes the other wealth of resource experiences that you don't have, to a point where when we have family gatherings, the times that they've come, some of them, they feel like strangers. And it's like, guys, there's nothing lacking from these guys versus myself. We're all from the same man. The fact that we have different mothers is the only difference. But Ikazi, for example, Lagwamlocho, is shared, and it makes me sad. I'd like to commend your grandfather. I'd like to commend your uncles. We speak about stepfathers and stepping up, but before a stepfather, your mom, if she has brothers, your mom, if she has a father, or any male relatives, etc., they can actually play a role. And I think it's a call to action to Amachi. To say, if you've got a sister, a female cousin, anytime aliko, don't be like,
yeah.
That's actually a call for you to be like, listen, I know itime aliko, but so they have some type of male.
They play a huge role because I always say, even in hindsight, normally they say that girls that grew up without a father figure, then they look for father figure in relationships.
Yeah, and men.
And interestingly, I've never. I always look at the age gap, even on my dating history. It's always been close to my age because I've never had that yearning of father figures. And also back to what you were saying, that this conversation can take different directions. I believe that we're always divinely guided. So I'm open to it taking whichever flow that it does.
you.
Yeah.
You spoke about Pietermaritzburg. Where is home in Pietermaritzburg? And then you mentioned in-service training. What's that about?
Okay. Pietermaritzburg, Mgungundlovu. Not too far from Durban. Most people always think Maritzburg is in Durban, but it's not really there. I was born and bred in Tlazaje, which is semi-rural. I grew up with my great-grandmother, a loving household. And then I moved to Mbali, one of the townships there, stayed with my grandmother and grandfather full-time. And then now we stay in Westgate, and I'm staying with my mom and my uncle.
Westgate is in?
Pietermaritzburg,
as well?
yes. We've got a Westgate, we've got Southgate in Pietermaritzburg.
Okay. I need to give a shout out to Sparky, Spesi Kekulu. I went to varsity with him. He's an actor now, Umembali,
Is it?
as well. I don't remember where Sisu. I think she's from Pietermaritzburg. Joanne Reineke.
Oh.
She's an actress as well. I think she's mixed race. She might be from that side, if I'm not mistaken.
And Tusombedu also.
Tusombedu as well.
From Pietermaritzburg.
Oh, it's too dope. Ubaba's from Ehawik. It's not Pietermaritzburg.
Yeah.
Mpopomen.
Midlands, Meander. But yeah.
Pietermaritzburg, sorry, in-service training. There's something I wanted to ask about Maritzburg and your grandparents. I wanted to ask the age gap between, when your mom had you.
She was 20.
When she had you?
Yeah.
Oh, so she fell pregnant at 19.
Yeah.
You mentioned 20. That's not too bad. She went on with life and you lived with your grandparents?
She went on with life with me because at some point we were both wearing school uniform because she eventually went back to school.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went back to school, and then my grandparents obviously were the primary caregivers. Because
they were your parents, both of you?
Yes,
Yeah.
They were kind of raising us up. And that's why I think I called her Sislindiwe, because most of the people were calling her that.
Sislindiwe, yeah.
It only took me getting into, I guess, adulthood. Then I started calling her Mamo. And it's been a beautiful transition because then even our relationship, I think it's multi-pronged. Sometimes she is that friend because of the bonding sessions that we would have growing up. Like on Sundays, we'll do each other's nails and all of that, like pamper sessions. But at the same time, I know that she's my mom.
Yeah.
And I need to approach her in a certain way when it comes to certain topics and conversations. And Pietermaritzburg, as I said, my whole family is there. I went to school there. And you asked about in-service training. I did travel and tourism by default. It was not my initial choice, but because I had taken time to apply, I don't know what I was thinking about during matric. Travel and tourism was the only course that was available. And that's how then I ended up doing in-service training at Pietermaritzburg Publicity House, where then that young man came. And it obviously, in hindsight, as much as it was a wrong cause, it brought me so many opportunities because while working there, that's when I got the opportunity to go work at Disney World, Animal Kingdom, when they were opening there.
Where's Disney World?
In the US.
Jeez. Okay.
So one of the silver linings of enrolling for a wrong cause.
Yes.
Yeah, I got an opportunity to move there for a good 18 months, representing South Africa as a tourist destination. And they wanted also authenticity. That's why they came to Africa to recruit African students because the theme park was supposed to be in Africa.
Okay. Disney World, Animal Kingdom.
Yes.
Animal Kingdom in Disney World.
Yes, it's the fourth because they've got your MGM and all these other ones, but then they've got Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
And then I came back to Pietermaritzburg after 18 months because we had an option to either extend the contract or move to their cruise ships. And to me, I was like, I don't want to stay in the US. I want to come back to South Africa. I love South Africa. It's got so much going on because I think sometimes it takes you moving out of our beautiful continent, beautiful country to really appreciate it.
100%.
Came back to Pietermaritzburg and I was there for, I think, a good 3 months. And then I felt like I had outgrown it. And then the quest came, like, what is my next? And that's how Joburg came about. The first family member to move up to Johannesburg with nobody.
Migrating to the big bad city.
Yeah, with my mom's blessing though.
You're still close with your family?
Very close. I go home quite often.
Okay.
Grateful for WhatsApp video calls also. Yeah.
Did your mom have any more children? Do you have any children?
I've got a sister. She came when I was 13.
Okay.
And I had thought that like I'm an only child, done for. Then next thing I come back home from school for the holidays and my mom is like, are you pregnant? Sorry. And I'm like, why didn't you consult me? Like, not in a bad way, but it's like, yeah, like we should have made the decision together that we're having somebody else. So yeah, my sister came when I was 13 and we've got a good relationship. But obviously, because of the age gap, it took a while for us to really ebb and flow into the proper sisterhood that we have now. Because when she was there, I was already in teenagehood. When I was into young adulthood,
No, I understand.
And then children of my own, no, I do not have. And I'm going to also elaborate. We get born. There's that expectation that every girl, child at some point, they're going to want to have children.
Yeah.
When I hit 30, I had to sit and have like real conversations with myself because I'm getting older. And also my mom was like here and there touching about like grandchildren and all of that. Do I want to have children? And the ultimate answer was like, no, I do not want to have children. Not of my own. I love children.
Yeah.
I'm the most amazing aunt, the most amazing godmother and all of that. But when I thought about the responsibility that comes with me having my own children, I was like, I don't think I'm cut out for that because it's a full-on responsibility.
Yeah.
And then I had to have the conversation with my mom, and she was not really getting it at first. And then ultimately my response was, if it's in God's plan, ultimately it's going to happen. We make our own plans, but ultimately what is meant for us will find us, whether you did or did not want to have children. If you meant to have them, you will have. And then fast track, coincidentally, premature menopause happened, which then meant that even if I had wanted to have children of my own, it was not going to happen because then that freedom of choice was gone because of the infertility that comes with premature menopause.
Let's start the episode officially. So I watched an amazing episode on Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. He was speaking to a lady about infertility. I thought it was really brilliant, and I hope so many other people go watch it. Then I watched another episode about a week or two later about a lady speak about menopause. And it just coincidentally happened that we'd met at the SA Podcast and Music Festival. I remember just being captured, seeing you. The way you were dressed, number one, was stunning. And I think I've been on your, Instagram. You're actually quite stylish, if I may say so.
Thank you.
So very stylish lady. And people were asked at the end to kind of share their learnings from the day. And you came and you very briefly told your story. And I was fascinated because I was like, I don't know anything about what this lady's speaking about. And it almost had to happen that we sit down. And then the episode would come later, and I'm like, I already know a lady that I was going to sit with and speak about this with. I need to give a shout out to DJ Sbu, Nick, Desiree, Sonia, and everyone that was involved at the SA Podcast and Music Festival. Because to what you were saying about destiny and even doing in-service and that guy coming and you doing research, I guess some of these things maybe are destiny and it's the universe and it's spirit. True. To be like, since you guys are not going to meet anywhere else, so that you sit.
Happen.
Your book is very thick and young too, sir. Yeah, like I said, I sent you questions and then you added a few more. So I'm going to try and go through them and we'll see how far we get.
Okay.
You've introduced yourself, and then the first question is, what made you decide to write the Perimenopausal Globetrotte? And what does all of that even mean?
It's a mouthful of a title for a book, right? Yeah. The title, it covers my transition into menopause, getting to the other side also. We'll obviously mention the terminologies as we progress with the conversation. And the Globetrotter part, it happened because at that time, I was working as a flight attendant for the national carrier. So I was busy traveling the world, fetching my life, and then perimenopause reared its head. And that's how the title of the book came about. And with the imagery.
Yeah.
This is the flight attendant.
That's you.
No, it's not me, but
it represents you.
Yes, it's supposed to be me, the scarf and all. And then we've got the females are reproductive organs here.
Yeah.
And I put the flowers because I'm saying that we need to bloom at each phase of our reproductive stages.
Okay.
And then the lemon color, it just is tied to the byline, turning my premature menopause lemons into lemonade, because I always believe in finding silver linings
You
in
mentioned that line
everything
earlier.
that we go through. So the reason of me writing the book is multi-pronged. In the opening of the book, I state my whys for the book. And I always get fascinated because it's 19 whys. Normally, when it comes to whys, it needs to be that one thing.
Sure.
But for me, because of the nature of this subject, I had to really dig deeper so that I always stay true to my whys. Hence, the book is so thick.
Yeah.
I speak about my experience with premature menopause in my early 30s. I speak to society because there is so much stigma that is tied to menopause. It's deemed as this phase of life where women are done for, they've reached their sell-by dates, their value and worth is over. I speak to men because they coexist with us, so they need to be as knowledgeable about it as much as possible, even though they'll never fall pregnant or go through menopause, but they need to be knowledgeable about these phases of life. I speak to media, the organizations that target women when it comes to certain products and how they will label some of the things, say anti-aging. That is negative. It puts getting older in a negative
thing, yeah.
Unlike those that are trying to say, oh, pro-aging, then it puts it in a better light. I am speaking to women that are embarrassed about this topic. So I'm saying I'm going to be the voice for you. And obviously, also do not fit what menopause is supposed to look like for most people. That is why one of the doctors that I work with, Dr. Nadia, always goes like, oh, Xoli, I just love you being the face of menopause because you are changing the narrative already by how you're showing up.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to organizations because menopause not only affects women's private lives or family lives or romantic relationships, but it does affect how women show up at work. And organizations have got all these wonderful policies. They are big on talking about diversity, inclusion, equality, and belonging. But there is not much that gets taken into account about women as they head into this phase of life while still fully employed, chasing their careers. I am asking questions about menopause in the African context. Yeah. How was it approached back then? Because, not much was documented back then. And some of, I think, the experiences are gone with those generations, but then there's always custodians. So I'm saying, come to the fore. Enlighten us about this. I am speaking to the church. The church hardly speaks about menopause, even during premarital counseling. It's a forgotten subject. And church normally likes spiritualizing everything. It's like, pray, fast it away. Yeah. You're not going to fast away this phase of life that every woman is going to go through if they live long enough. I am speaking to the Department of Education to say that this phase of life needs to be actively included in the subjects, like whether it's biology, life orientation, whatever that you choose to call it, so that we all grow up knowing about it. Because research has confirmed that most women, as much as we are the ones that go through it, but we only get enough knowledge and information when we are in menopause.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Not before. We've got period preparation conversation. We've got pregnancy preparation books and all of that. Women, before they fall pregnant, they know what is waiting for them and all of that. It's just them going through the experience. My thing is menopause also should have that preparation. A girl should know that this is what is the final reproductive stage of my life. Boy child needs to know that the woman that I'm going to be with, this is the phase that she will eventually get into. Oh. And I speak to different women also, because just like with periods, some women, they breeze into their periods every month. No PMS, no struggles. Then there's women that will have mild to moderate symptoms. Then there is women that they struggle maybe the first 2 days. They can't even move. They can't do anything due to that. Same as pregnancy. Others, they glow through their pregnancy. Others, they'll be like, your pregnancy changed me in so many ways, not just physically, because you see sometimes even the nose, the pigmentation issues. And then you add the emotional effects and all of that. Others, they go like, one child was enough because of the trauma that came with it. Same as giving birth also. Some women always think like going natural means you're the champion, and they look down at the ones that maybe had to go the C-section route. Same as menopause, some women will breeze into it. Others, mild and moderate symptoms. Others, their lives will be turned upside down. And sometimes there's that thing that some women that had it easy, they might look at the ones that are struggling or they struggle through it and like, really? You couldn't chin up and go through it? You are being dramatic. Why are you making, a big deal out of this? It's just a natural phase of life. And then that's when then women go through it in silence and suffer through it because they don't want to come across as being all the things that we've mentioned. So my thing is to say that every woman's experience is valid. Easy, not easy. You should be able to own it, speak about it, seek the right support as per need. And we need to band together also as women when it comes to this. And then children need to be knowledgeable about it because sometimes it is the children that will pick up the changes. I'll always make an example that one of the symptoms of menopause, for example, brain fog, which is almost like forgetfulness. And we've had stories of women forgetting to pick up the children or they park at work and then they turn. There was this popular video. Then they turn and the child is still sitting at the back. It's like, oh, flip, I forgot to drop her off, And then if these things continue to happen, a child can even like, but mom,
something's not right.
And then she might have that aha moment. So it is very important. And also I wanted to inspire intergenerational conversations because we're the generation that is more open about things. We're saying that we don't want to suffer through things in silence. Imbogodo is a good word and everything, but we should not have to suffer. And sometimes when you find the older generations, they ask, why are you making a big deal out of this phase of life? I mean, it's something that you can go through.
They've romanticized struggle.
Yes, and I think that we shouldn't. And obviously, they've got their own reasons as to why they romanticizing it or they romanticized it. But the big thing is we need to have these conversations because it's important to know also how the females in your family fed during this phase of life or during any other phase of life. Even when it comes to diseases, we need to know what diseases are prevalent in your family. And I speak also into the importance of understanding our family dynamics. As I told you that I only know one side of my family genetic makeup.
That's sad.
And when it comes to things like this, I've found myself wondering, how did the women from my dad's side of the family fare through this phase of life? So it's quite a number of whys that came into this book. And the bigger one also is I wanted to be the bridge between the medical professionals and the patients or the general women out there. Because normally women, they still very passive when it comes to their health. Even when they show up for consultations, they just sit and listen to whatever the doctor is going to say.
Whatever the doctor's saying.
Hence, even when you go to hospital, sometimes visiting a relative, there's that thing that you can't even look at the patient's file. Like you do not touch those things. But why not? Because if it's your health, then you need to be
involved.
To be part of it. Be able to ask that you said that we're doing this test, but what is the reason? Okay, the test is back. What does this mean? So that we are able to be informed. I always sign the book, Informed Equals Empowered. The moment we are informed, we are able to do better. We are able to advocate for ourselves better. And also, I always say to women, we're not married to our doctors. If you feel that level of discomfort or you feel unheard, because sometimes it's always like, for some women, it's a rush through kind of a consultation. If your gut instinct is telling you, nah, then you can change. go look for another doctor because you need to be as comfortable
Correct.
as possible. That is why I was able to write this book, because I had the most amazing gynecologist. I dedicated the book to him, Dr. Tlakula. Unfortunately, he passed on last year before I could produce the book.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
Hence-
But thank you to him, Dr. Tlakula.
Dr. Tlakula.
Yeah.
And I still have a relationship with his wife because when he passed on, I did not make it to the funeral because I was not aware. But when I found out online, when I was Googling his credentials now, because I was about to approach him to write my foreword,
Found out he's gone.
that's when, did I not cry? I cried. I had to go to YouTube to just watch his funeral so that I could satisfy myself that he's gone, because he really poured into me. He gave me the undivided attention. And I think it's one of those amazing qualities for most of the old school doctors. They understand that it's all about the numbers and all of that. But during the consultation, they really serve with heart. And they allow you to go do your research, come back with questions and all of that. So I feel that sometimes most women, their consultations are not as beneficial, because then they walk out, then they want to speak with other women to get further information. And you're like, but shouldn't you be having those conversations?
You just come from a
with
doctor,
your-
Auntie. Why are you asking us?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be that bridge, because also sometimes doctors, they speak with too much medical jargon that just goes over. And sometimes also during consultations, some of the information that you're getting can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. And when you walk out, you feel like, oh my God, then you want to unpack. And that's when you want people that have walked the journey, or that are walking the journey, for relatability. Somebody that is like, I've gone through it, or I am going through it. This is my experience. Let's hold our hands together. And normally when it comes to menopause, when you Google, you normally see older faces, white faces. That's another big thing for me. It's like,
Right.
we need Black faces. We need to speak in our own vernac also. For example, our upbringing, it plays a number of factors into certain things. When I speak about my hot flash experience, my mom, her first question, I went into menopause before her also.
Hectic.
Yeah. Then she looked at me one December, hot flashing away. She's like, what's going on? At the time, I was not sure what was happening also. I'm like, I'm not sure, but I've just been experiencing this. And her first response is, "Ugcineni nokhipha." You understand? I'm like,
Which is basically detoxing and cleaning your system.
yes, which, I mean, we know that every Black household normally post-December holidays, before going to school, you need to clean the system
Castor
so
oil,
that,
baba.
like,
Noma uyaqhatha.
yes. And when you're speaking to sometimes other races, maybe it's not a thing in their background, but then if we're speaking in our own voices, hence even in the book, that's how I mentioned it. And it's one of the, it's the first chapter, I think, or the second one. And people always laugh because of that relatability. Good to, you know what, Xoli, you just took us back to our own childhood. So it is important to have relatability, to have the right context, so that even when we speak menopause, there is that point of click.
Yeah.
Unlike when you're hearing older women, or when you're hearing different races, and like, I hear them, but they're not getting it, or I'm not connecting with that. And it was one of my struggles also initially, because when I was looking for familiarity, voices like mine, faces like mine, and I was mostly, that was in 2016, I was met with not much. And that's how then I started advocating and speaking about menopause in all the platforms that I had access to.
Ah, thank you so much, Sis Xoli. The menopause activist. I've got so many questions. Where am I going to start? Colonization stole a lot from us. And it's becoming evident as I sit with more guests and I do more research in how many solutions Africans had for various things, phases of our lives, work, things like going through menstruation. We were, number one, tied to nature. And number two, we were very, we were integrated in how we lived. Even something like, I mean, it's said now that just because you're on your period doesn't mean you can't work. But for some people, it's like, look, it's your body going through something and you're meant to respect it. There's maybe even a spiritual aspect,
Yes.
which we'd respect, that the girl stays at home and, you know, you get to relax. Kind of, I mean, today people are speaking about a menstruation leave as an example, that women should be given menstruation leave, because for some women, the symptoms are severe. They can't function. Let me go to the questions rather, so you can speak. You spoke about going into menopause in your early 30s. You look early 30s right now. So if you don't mind, how old are you? How old normally are women when they go into menopause? And again, what is menopause?
Okay.
Just in the simplest way. I know pause means to stop or to, so
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Firstly, I'm turning 46
Jeez.
on the 8th of July.
You know that you look good for your age?
I've been told.
Hey,
So,
sibonga abazali. Bona nogoba noma bengekho. Siyababonga.
and also, how you live your life, it does play a huge role. But yeah, genetics, yes, I'll always be like,
Shout out
thank
to
you,
the fam.
parents, yes. So 46 on the 8th of July. And as you aptly put it, pause, it means like stop or whatever.
Sorry,
Meno-
8th of July. We're filming this episode on the 28th of June. Because it might come out in July, August. Sure.
The 8th of July. So
Menopause. Sorry.
menopause. I'm glad that you are wanting us to lay the foundation, because whenever we speak menopause, people get confused because there's so many terminologies that are linked to it. And then sometimes people then, even women, as I said earlier, they don't really grasp what menopause is. And then they use the term or ask questions like, can we cure menopause? And then you can say like, yeah, there's a lot of work that we still need to do around this phase of life. So firstly, a girl is born, right?
Are we taking it all the way to the beginning?
Yeah.
I love it.
Think
Okay.
rather, let us
Let's
take
go.
it to the
A girl
beginning.
is born.
When a girl is born, she's born with all the eggs that she'll ever have for her entire lifetime. And as she gets older, she's shedding them. And
Sorry, I'm going to need you to slow it down. And I apologize. I'm going to be interrupting a lot.
Okay.
Because I want to take us on this journey slowly.
Okay.
When a girl is born, she's born with all the eggs
yes.
she will ever have in her whole life.
Yes. So, meaning there was this beautiful image that was circulating on social platforms a few months ago. It had like the female that is pregnant, and there you can see like the child still inside there. And it was saying that before you were born, you existed in your grandmother's womb. So when your grandmother was pregnant with your mom as an embryo had her eggs, right?
Already in.
Yes. So you were there already in your grandmother's womb in that sense. So
you're basically saying when a woman is pregnant and has a daughter in her stomach, the
then
daughter
the
already has eggs.
Great-granddaughter, yes.
Hectic.
So when we are born already with our eggs in the...
Do you have any idea how many eggs women generally are born with?
Jeez, I think it's in 2 millions.
Into millions.
But we shed them, obviously, as we go through life. And by the time we hit puberty, which is when our reproductive years come into effect. When I say our reproductive years come into effect, that is when we are able then, if we have sex, to fall pregnant. That is when our period starts.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's pause there by period. This is from medicalnewstoday.com. According to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, a female fetus, that's what you were speaking about, the baby in the stomach, typically has around 6 to 7 million eggs at 20 weeks. A baby in the stomach has 6 to 7. This drops to 1 to 2 million eggs at birth. From 7 million to 1 million at birth.
As I was saying, that we're shedding them as we're going through life.
The number of immature egg cells decreases by around 11,000 each month before puberty. So I just want to check something. 95% of individuals assigned female at birth retain about 12% of their original ovarian reserve by the time they turn 30. That's approximately 120,000 eggs. Sorry, we're going into puberty. 7 million inside your mom's tummy, which is going to be your children in some future. And then when you're born, 1 million, you've already lost millions. And then you lose every month as you get older.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So you grow up and you were speaking about puberty, getting ready for your menstruation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then puberty hits, and as you have aptly read there, then we continue with our periods to lose the eggs and all of that.
Sorry again to pause. You're born with 1 to 2 million eggs. Your periods start at from what I've heard, maybe girls 12, some younger.
Now
maybe
it's getting
some-
younger because of our
getting-
lifestyles and all of these changes. Yes.
So it could be as young as 9, 10.
Yeah, now, you
Okay.
see girls starting to develop.
From birth to, let's say, 10, 11, 12, girls are not having their periods. Does this mean they're not losing eggs, or are they losing them in another way, and you only start losing eggs at like 12?
They're losing them in another way because, they're immature eggs. And then
So at 12, it means the eggs are now mature
Yes.
to be
So that's when you
fertilized.
can,
That's
when
why
you
they
have
mature,
sex.
they're ready. That's why you
Yes.
bleed now, because
Yes.
they mature eggs.
Because
Okay.
it's either you have sex, then you fall pregnant,
Sure.
or you just bleed it away, like with your period.
I'm going to let you carry on. I've got a very controversial question, but maybe you'll cover. I'll let you go till we get to about 18. If you don't cover it, then I'll go back to 12.
Okay. Then every month, then we're losing the eggs because chances are during that time we're not engaging in sexual activity, and there is no pregnancy that is happening at that time. And then pregnancy might happen for some women because we're still going through the life phases, right?
Sure.
Puberty, then there will be pregnancy for some women. And then there is the last phase of life now, which is the menopause. And during that time, it's the opposite. Puberty, beginning of reproductive years. Menopause is the end of reproductive years. Your eggs are depleted. For lack
Are you
of a better
jumping
word.
to menopause?
It's life phases, right?
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
we're still laying the foundation. Like
No problem.
you're born, puberty,
Sure.
and then possibly pregnancy for some women,
Sure.
not all of them. Then there is the menopause part, which is the opposite of puberty.
It's the end of your
The
egg
fe-
cycle.
Yeah, reproductive life. Because then even if you were to have sex,
Sure.
you're not going to conceive naturally anymore.
Okay.
Unlike with puberty, if you have sex, then you will fall pregnant naturally.
Okay.
So in the simplest term, that is what menopause is, the exact opposite of puberty, the last reproductive cycle in a woman's years.
Sure.
And then what happens in between, and then it's different, obviously, as I say, for every woman. And then the period that is leading now to the factory closing, which is menopause, then it's called perimenopause. That is the transition. That is when now the female estrogen that is responsible for so much of our physical functioning, psychological and emotional functioning as women is also going haywire.
Estrogen is the majority female
Yes,
hormone.
yeah, because
Okay.
we've got like estrogen, then we've got progesterone, and then we've got testosterone. But the biggest one
is estrogen.
is estrogen. And it's responsible, as I say, from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet.
Yeah.
And during that phase, because it's also going haywire, leading now to menopause, leading to this final stage, leading to the factory closing, then the body is going through so many symptoms. And we always speak about the most popular ones, about my hot flashes, weight gain, loss of libido for some women, vaginal dryness, the brain
Sorry,
fog.
libido is sexual appetite.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And those are the most spoken about symptoms. But the list of symptoms, it keeps getting longer because we're the generation, as I said, that is speaking up about our experiences. At some point, they used to talk about 12 symptoms. Then at some point, it was 34.
Because no one
Now,
was speaking or researching.
speaking, and also the research is also increasing because menopause has been understudied and under-researched for the longest of time.
Yeah.
But now it's changing. Hence, even the conversations are becoming more and more, And now the list of symptoms is reaching over 100.
Jeez.
Which is why it is important for women to be as knowledgeable in as much as they can about them, because what if they do not get the typical or mostly spoken about symptoms? Then they can miss the transition because they're saying, oh, I'm not getting hot flashes. My periods are still regular. I'm not struggling with brain fog. I am still like swinging off the chandeliers. I don't...
Libido isashisa, baba.
Because that's another thing that when we speak about these symptoms, other women always think that definitely they're going to go through loss of libido. Some women, their
Don't.
libido, actually,
Goes up.
it goes the opposite.
Ngisapreki,
phase, like, let's
siyabangena.
see.
Njengoba ngingasapreki siyabangena manje.
And sometimes that's when also the oopsie babies happen because with the transition, right,
Yeah.
there is the irregular periods
So
also
you've told
happening.
yourself that, you know what?
then you relax on
Next thing,
contraceptives, and then suddenly it's like, when, how? And then it's like, yeah. So some of the symptoms that we hardly speak about is things like your dry skin. A woman is looking at herself and they're blaming their skincare products. Maybe is it winter? That is why like ungabalukoma on my skin.
May we press pause on the meno there, because we're gonna go into. I'd like you to rehash the standard symptoms. I want to ask what things like hot flushes mean, etc. And then you can go on the ones that you're raising now, dry skin, etc.
Okay.
I want to go back to this journey. 6-7 million in utero as a fetus, 1 to 2 million at birth. And then you start losing immature eggs. And then you start having your menstrual cycle, which is mature eggs that you're losing. And you spoke about sex and pregnancy. These are the uncomfortable conversations I guess we've never been having. We are in a world that is both natural and animalistic. And then we have what we call human modern component. Nature and biology works on a clock and a calendar and a time which almost doesn't care how we feel. And then we've got the human one, which is primary school, high school. You must matriculate at 18, and then you must get your tertiary, and then you must get married at. Biology doesn't care about those things.
Yeah.
This is the controversial question. Are you medical experts saying that a woman's body is ready to conceive, have sex, have a child from 12? What is your understanding around that? Or in your research and understanding, do you think that's not what it means and it means something else? And ideally, because we're moving from menstruation to menopause, when should women be having sex for the sake of having children from an optimal perspective? Because we know at some point the eggs are going to be finished.
Okay. As much as the girl child's body is ready for pregnancy from the moment they hit puberty. But then pregnancy and motherhood comes with so much other responsibilities. It's not about you being able to physically rear or conceive a child. That means
having fists doesn't mean I must punch people.
Yes, there is just so much. So yes, because they are still developing also in so many other aspects, even emotionally, psychologically. So no.
Yeah.
When is the right age according to science? Science says that from the ages of 20, actually, it is the optimum time to conceive and have children, because by that age, the eggs are at their optimum best. Because as we said, that as we get older, the quality of the eggs keeps dropping. So
you may have eggs, but they're not the best quality. What does quality of egg mean? Is it the quality of the child that's going to come, or how easy the pregnancy will be? Because you can't just say quality and then the child I had at 32 is a greater success than the one I had at 19. And now it's dumb and they are a problem in society.
Okay, quality in terms of how quick you're able to conceive also. Because the older women, when they're trying sometimes to fall pregnant, they have to sometimes work longer at it for it to happen.
Work what longer? What does that mean, work longer?
A younger person sometimes can have sex once.
Come on.
And then
they
can and conceive, you understand?
Sure.
That is maybe also the reason why we see teenagers falling pregnant quite quicker, because they think that when we're just fooling around, we're playing, but and because then
the eggs are like, I'm hungry, I want.
All of that, and the sperm is the one. And then as women get older, they do struggle because, as I said, the quality also, as much as they might even be having frequent sex, but because the quality of the egg also is not at its optimum best. Hence, they even advise that if you wanting to have children at a later stage, then look at options of harvesting your eggs and then freezing them. Some of the things that we hardly speak about, especially as Black people. And also because some women are chasing dreams, goals, careers, and all of that, or some are believing that I want to wait for the right partner.
Yes, I'm
and
waiting
then the
for
partner
marriage.
is riding a snail somewhere, okay, like to get
Where
to
are
you.
you?
And
Where are you?
just I understand.
Sure.
So women need to know that those are some of the options that they can look into.
Yeah.
And we hardly speak about that. And it's conversations that we need to encourage. I, for the first time, also had that conversation with my sister sometime last year because, as I said, the age gap is 13 years. She is 33 soon. She's got one child, which she had towards 30. Then I was asking her that, are you planning on having more children? And then she was like, I'm not sure why. Then we had to have this conversation that, you know what, you do not want to find yourself saying that now I want number 2, and then you struggle.
But it's flames.
Yeah, understand.
Okay.
And people don't like talking about this. We always go through it, I guess, in silence, because there's still also some stigma that is tied to going that route, going that approach of maybe freezing your eggs, IVF, and all of that. Because also I had like an in-depth conversation with my gynae. I guess we're just going to keep hopping with this conversation.
If you don't mind hopping, I mean, I was going to stop you and say, let's park it till later. But if you don't mind, because I know I already asked you to pause on the symptoms. So I also don't want to try and throw off your thing. But we'll go back. If we need to jump, we'll jump.
We can help. Because with my gynae, when it was confirmed that I had gone into premature menopause, he had to ask me if I wanted my own children. And obviously I told him no. And then he further obviously said, Guti, I was going to suggest that if you did, then we start looking at options. Do you have a sister? Because at that time, my eggs were done for. There was nothing, unlike a woman that still has an option of harvesting her own eggs. Then he was saying that we were going to look at that option that you can maybe use your sister's eggs.
And put them in your body.
Yes, if I wanted to have children. And that sparked a different conversation also, because I was thinking, whose child was that going to be ultimately, because like, it's her eggs, but then I was going to carry the
whose
child.
sperm as well.
And then
whose sperm as well.
The combination of it. And there's things that we don't talk about, because then legally and culturally and all of those things, then it gets to be a mixed mash, especially for us as African people. But there was an off-ramp that I wanted to add. And also the stigma of labeling people based on their experiences. With the test tube babies, when it started, like IVF, it used to be like the first babies, the first one was born in 1984. And we like labeling people based on that. I'm sure wherever he is, that baby is called maybe TB.
Sure.
Or TTB.
Test tube baby.
Yes. And now, if you've frozen your eggs, I always make the joke that if people were to know about it, then who says they want to call your child frozen the moment they find out? Because we like labeling things based on that. And people keep quiet about these things, which then is a greater disservice for us, because we don't know about success that comes with these options, because nobody talks about it. People only talk about it in close corners. And somebody was saying that when you go to these clinics, it's amazing how you will find so many African Black couples. But when you think in general, in your, who do you know? Because people fear that they are going to be labeled based on that, because it's looked as if you are lesser of a person because you were not able to conceive naturally. So yes, there was that regarding that.
You said optimal is 20. Is there, because I mean, I'm a father, 7 children. I've gone through a lot of these cycles, but I don't want to steal your shine. My understanding of pregnancy is women are deemed medically high risk from age 35. So I'm trying to figure out from 20, if it's optimal, is there like an end of that optimal before we go into high risk? Is it just before 35 in terms of quality of eggs? And outside of the eggs being able to take sperm, are there other things that might be impacted by quality of eggs? I mean, we know we worry about kids that are born Down syndrome, etc., etc.
Conditions. normally say that up till the ages of 30, that's the optimum.
20 to 30.
Yes, that's the
10-year
optimum.
window, Baba.
Yes, almost like. But then you can still push, especially if you want to harvest your eggs up till the ages of 35, if you want to harvest them. And then when you speak about what other factors, lifestyle plays a huge role also in the quality of our eggs. Genetics play a huge role. Things like autoimmune diseases and all of that, they play a huge role. Certain medications that we take, they play a huge role. And those are the things that we hardly speak about.
Yeah.
Hence, we say that we need to be schooled as much as possible because some of the lifestyle that we expose ourselves, the ripple effect of it only shows itself
Later.
Lifestyle,
alcohol, cigarettes. Weed, I'm guessing.
Even our
Probably-
quality of sleep also.
Okay.
You know, our quality of sleep plays a huge role into so much. For example, when I was also doing some of my research, I find out that the mess in the circadian rhythm, like our sleeping patterns, it affects our reproductive organs and functioning.
This is for men and women. You don't know?
Yes,
For men and women.
but especially us,
Yeah.
obviously, as women. Because another differentiator is, as women, we're born with our eggs, right? And that's that. So
That's all you
whatever
have.
lifestyle effects, it affects them.
Sure.
But with men, you reproduce your sperm. So you kind of have that opportunity of correcting the quality of your sperm by
That's unfair.
evaluating and looking at certain aspects. But with us, and that is one of the researchers that I'm hoping to embark on,
Yeah.
the reproductive effects of flying as a career on women. Because, as I say, a day in a life, you're traveling
Sure.
through different time zones
Yeah.
all over the world, different seasons, altitudes, and all of that. And you don't know because nobody talks about it. You're just grateful and loving this job. But the effect of
Might
it
have
on
an
the
impact.
body, you do not know about it.
And as an air hostess, I can imagine you guys don't sleep as much as well, since you speak about
Listen,
sleep.
I think I sleep best ever since I stopped flying.
Sure.
Obviously, we do get the days off that are supposed to undo the effects of the flying on the body. Because firstly, when the roster comes out, depends which hemisphere you're traveling to and all of that. Then they will give you the days off so that you acclimatize, so that you undo that. But doing this for a long period of time, nothing is really gonna replace. For example, the lesser sleep that you are deprived of, your sleep bank keeps depleting. So to be able to really deposit into it, you're hardly gonna be able to balance it. Hence, I had to be intentional when I found out about my experience. Also, when I stopped flying, I had to reteach my body how to sleep. Because sleeping, that's when the body replenishes itself, cells regenerate and all of that, the brain and all of that. Because a person that has not slept properly, they have been deemed to be worse than a drunk person in terms of how cognition gets interrupted. Like it's in the simple things. I remember the other time I was so tired coming from a flight, trying to put the key into the
wasn't
keyhole
going
to
in.
open, like just dropping it. It's like you feel like
I'm having a thought in my head of when toddlers are sleepy. Siyabahleka ngithi, because they look like drunkards.
yeah.
They
Good,
all over
yeah.
the place, and they and you're saying being sleep deprived could be worse than
It's just being
sometimes
drunk.
being drunk.
Yes. We've had even some of our ex-colleagues during that time landing back from an international flight because on the flight you'll get time off to sleep maybe 2 hours
Yeah.
or so. And then you land, you want to get home. The body is tired because you underslept. And some have fallen asleep behind the wheel and gotten into car accidents
Jeez.
and all of that, which yet again drives to the effects of that. A drunk person gets into a car accident because of the cognition. Like you stop at a robot sometimes, and then while you're waiting for it, you hear stories. Somebody's like, you know what, the car's had to hoot because I fell asleep. And we do not really focus on those things. So then the moodiness, the irritability again as a result of not sleeping properly. So sleep plays such a huge role, because then you're moody, you're irritable, and sometimes you're even feeling like depressed and all of that. And if you go to the doctor, sometimes one might not even backtrack to check, how's your sleeping? How's your overall lifestyle? What job do you do?
What job do you do?
Yes, and the ripple effect
Stress.
of it. Yes. And then you might end up just being put on antidepressants unnecessarily, when it's something that could have been reversed sometimes
in your
by
lifestyle
looking
choices.
into the lifestyle choices. Because for example, not just relative to flight attendants only, but people that work shifts. Sometimes you're staying in the township or in a complex where during the day it is noisy.
Yeah.
Kids are playing, or taxi, yahuta, calling me like, Mama, are you going to town? You're trying to sleep because your shift is starting maybe at 6 and it's 6 until the following morning. You have to prepare for work, but you're not rested, because then you ended up sometimes waking up doing house chores because you can't sleep. But we do not know that, like the night, the eye covers, getting blacking out windows, noise
To get a
cancellation,
deep
so that
sleep.
you can get into that deep sleep. Because most people get coerced into that thing. I do get sleep, but then what is the quality, of your sleep? Because all the sleep stages, they play a different role. It's not just the body, but it's also for our minds and all of that. And then when people have to show up for work, they're always just fatigued, they're lethargic, they're moody, they're irritable, they don't know what is going on. And the immune system takes a toll.
Sure.
And
I can imagine the caffeine. That's when you're pumping caffeine, energy drinks, coffee. In extreme cases, maybe even some type of drugs to be awake.
And you're treating things at a superficial level, and but the effect of that also, because most of these things are addictive. The energy drinks, as you say, the caffeine and all of that. And interestingly, whenever you see people going to work, it's become a thing these days. Whether those that are walking, coming out of a taxi, makunyangapo or makeke, and then energy drink, 6
Yeah.
It's like, but you're supposed to have been fresh. You
You're
just
supposed to
woke
be
up.
fresh. You shouldn't need
but
a boost.
already, and then the cell phones that we're exposed to, the role that it plays also into affecting the quality of our sleep. Because most people, the last thing that we do before we close our eyes, it's still like being exposed to the blue light of the phone and all of that. So even the mind, even if you shut it down, chances are it's not really shutting down, because it's still processing that. If you happen to wake up in the middle of the night, especially also for some menopausal women, because frequent bathroom trips because of the bladder issues, then when you come back to bed, sometimes because you're up, then it's like, let me just quickly check my phone. And then you undo everything else again. Then it's a struggle to wake up. And then the ripple effect goes on, because then alarm goes off, you're not fully rested, and then you're dealing with the repercussions of not having slept properly and.
Let me try and fast forward, because we're not really here for fertility. You spoke about medication and innate medication. It's not for today, but at some point we'll have to speak about contraceptives as medication and what impact they may have on eggs, quality of eggs leading up to. I'm going to fast forward 35, high risk. You may have harvested your eggs, as an example. Maybe you fall pregnant at 40 if you're lucky. Again, you said you're 46 now in July.
Yeah.
You became menopausal at 30.
The perimenopause journey, if one is tracking properly, because the years leading to menopause, which is called perimenopause, it can take a few months for some women.
Okay.
For some women, it can take a few years. Others, it can be anything from 10 to 14 years.
10 to 14 of perimenopause.
Yeah, just the transition.
Transition from to
your periods are irregular, but you haven't, because some of the medical experts say you have to have gone through 12 months straight without a period to deem to have reached menopause.
That's the definition. 12 months of no period, per definition, means. So if someone hasn't had their period for 12 months, does it automatically mean, or is there some other confirmation they need to take?
Yes, because firstly, some women are on things like the loop for contraceptive, and they don't get their periods, right? So they cannot. As a
side effect of the loop?
Yeah, it is one of they don't get their periods. So then they cannot be saying that I'm going to use my periods to track my perimenopause transition, which is why it is important to be knowledgeable of the other symptoms, because then you need to be able to see as some changes start presenting themselves. And when I say that, it is for the women that are transitioning when menopause is expected to be happening. And those ages are supposed to be from the ages of 45 to 55 and 51.
That's perimenopause.
No, menopause, like heat menopause, and the perimenopause period, yes, is from 45 to 55. And are we on the same page?
I'm hoping. And then at 55, it's official.
It is supposed, the common ages are 45 to 55, right?
Okay.
For menopause.
Okay.
For women to reach menopause. So then the perimenopause, if we're saying that it takes about 10 years, then some women can start transitioning into menopause from the ages of 35.
Oh, okay. I hear you.
Yes. So that's the difference. So menopause is supposed to happen from the ages of 45 to 55, like the factory closing.
Okay.
Yes.
Generally, on average, you're looking at that range for women.
Yes, and the most common age being about 51 or 52 for most women. And obviously, different races, they fare differently. But this is just the broader numbers. So if we're saying that perimenopause is happening earlier, before, then if it's 10 years, from 35, some women are transitioning.
35 to 40, 41, 42.
Yes, and then maybe in a case of women that go into premature menopause, like in my case, because premature menopause.
Premature menopause.
When menopause happens before the ages of 40. So premature menopause, anything that is 39 and younger, that's premature menopause. If your factory closes at that age. If it closes before the ages of 40 to 44, that is early menopause.
Okay. I hear you. Let me just do a recap to make sure I'm paying attention in class. 35, high-risk pregnancy. From 35 to 41, 42, that 10-year gap or that 10-year range could be for some women where they start perimenopause. They're transitioning into menopause. For the average, it's between ages 45 to 51, 52.
To reach.
With the average woman, 51, right? 45 to 55, sorry. With the average woman at 51, 52.
Yes.
If you are having menopause before the age of 40, it's called premature menopause. And then from 40 to 44, that's early menopause, because it's meant to be from 45 up. Okay.
But there's no term for women that go into it later, because there's women
after
that
55.
go into menopause and they're still getting their periods at 60 and, but they're not called, this is late menopause still. And then there also is surgically induced menopause or medically induced menopause. That is when menopause is caused by certain medication. For example, say a woman has breast cancer, and then they have to do certain treatments, whether it's your radiation, your chemo, then it leads them to medically induced menopause.
Does that mean the killing of the eggs, or does it also have other impacts? I don't know.
You know what? For some women, I'm going to make an example with Utando Pato. She's got a book also. What's this? She went into she had cancer, breast cancer, and chronicles of a high-functioning alcoholic or something like that. But she centers her conversation around her journey with alcoholism. But then during that phase also, she went into medically induced menopause because of breast cancer. And during that time, menopause is induced so that they suppress the estrogen.
Okay, the female hormone.
Yes, that female hormone.
On the Rocks, memoir of a high-functioning alcoholic, Thando Phado.
Yes. That's the title of the book. It always gets me. So she went into medically induced menopause, and that was before the age of 40. And some women, they will, when they are deemed to be cancer-free, and they get off the medication or the treatment, and then some, when they get off, then the cycle and everything resumes.
Okay.
So then they hit the surgically induced menopause as part of their treatment for cancer.
Okay.
And then they will still then get into the normal transition for menopause as per. So, but some, it can happen at the same time. And then when they went into that medically induced menopause, and then even if they stop, then they do not, because then it was part of their journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to ask at what age yours was confirmed, and how was it confirmed? Was it that 12 months of no period? Was there maybe blood tests, etc.? And then I did pause you, and I apologize for that, for you to go back to the symptoms of menopause, hot flushes, and then you were going into dry skin, etc.
Mine was confirmed at age of 38 in 2016. And in hindsight, I had been experiencing quite a number of symptoms. But as I said, that because of the job that I was doing, I will mostly put the symptoms off to one thing or another. Even when I'd have like your digestive issues, when I became lactose intolerant, I would think, man, it's because of this food at a random thing. When I had things like weak and brittle nails, I'm like, maybe it's the nail polish that I was using and all of that. And if you are younger than 45, you cannot just assume when you're presenting with these symptoms that it is menopause. You need to do certain tests like your FSH test, which is a follicle stimulating hormone test. So your gynae will send you through to the lab to do that. The LH test, they need to look at your thyroid levels, rule out any underlying causes, because sometimes symptoms can interlink, for lack of a better word. So they need to be sure that indeed it is premature or early menopause, because sometimes if you think that is that, and then you continue with life only to find out later that it was not that, it was another underlying condition that you could have addressed back then. So as a Google generation, it is important that we don't just Google and then say that that is that for a fact. And as we mentioned also, that some women will be on the loop and then they miss this 12-month irregular period or the period stopping. It is important that when they go for their tests, they look at every aspect of their results. I've got a high school friend that transitioned into menopause in 2019 in hindsight. But because she was still deemed also to be young, then the doctor missed the changes as they were happening because the focus was on everything but looking at the FSH levels and LH levels. She was mostly presenting with psychological symptoms, and then she was put on antidepressants and all of that. And now that she knew what she knew, then she backtracked. And then she was like, 2017, 2018, these were my FSH levels. And 2018, then 2019, they shot up. But the doctor missed it.
The tests were done, but they just didn't look at this info
because she's not deemed to be and also because we don't have this knowledge and we don't look at our tests also, as we were speaking earlier, in that sense. She also missed it. And she was saying that maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because maybe she would have struggled with that knowledge that she was transitioning into menopause at that time, because maybe she might not have had the mental strength of dealing with it, because as we said, that for some women, it can be a very severe transition. And especially with the psychological effect, because it can even lead to things like suicidal thoughts. And I was one of those. And that is why I think I got so passionate about this, because some women have successfully taken their lives. Obviously, it's not in big numbers, but some have. Others have gotten to the brink like I share in the book, sometimes I'll be driving to work because of where I was. I'll just envision letting go of the steering wheel and just crashing and just like, boom, life is over. Because I was in such a depressed state. I was feeling so many things that I could not put a name into it. And that's what most women say when they're transitioning into menopause. Like, I know that something is not right, but I can't put a finger into it. I do not know what's going on because of the lack of information and normalized conversation. They go and they do tests sometimes. For example, when I say tests, not the ones that we're talking about for menopause, but for some of the symptoms. One lady was saying that she used to get heart palpitations and she'll think that she's getting a heart attack. And she gets to ER, they do all the tests, everything comes
fine.
clear because it's more of a hormonal thing. Some women, their breasts get sore and all of that. They're thinking, oh my word, it's some breast cancer. They do mammograms and all of that. Everything comes clear. And they start thinking like, am I losing my mind? Am I crazy? Am I imagining these things? Others, things like your brain fog, because, you forget the simplest of things. And when it happens, some they're thinking, is it an early onset of a dementia, Alzheimer's, and all of that? And it's still supposed to show up for life. So now there's additional stress because you do not know what you're dealing with, what is going on. Then sometimes the emotional ones, you are just weepy. I went through that a lot. I'm working as a flight attendant. You're supposed to always be like bubbly, smiling and everything, but you're carrying this thing. You just want to cry, but you don't know what's wrong. Your life seems ideal from a distance, everything, but you want to cry this thing away and you can't cry it away. And you're dealing with things like your brain fog, which affects your self-confidence.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like I'm sitting with you, I know what I want to say, but then the brain is on like some buffering moment. And you can see how people are looking into like,
Say something, what's going on?
As you still...
Then your confidence takes a hit.
And as we spoke about the effects of it at work, imagine you have to do a presentation, all eyes on you, and then it's me bani for a moment. And then sometimes like, Xoli, why is she dropping the ball? Is she no longer interested in a job? What is happening? And that is why corporate SA needs to be part of this conversation so that they are able to make their spaces menopause inclusive, so that women are able to share what their journeys are like. Because if you are struggling with, for example, that period of brain fog, then it does not mean that you have to book off work, because sometimes women end up booking off work. They're not really sick. They are just dealing with the symptom, but they know that I've got this responsibility today. So to get out of it, then I'd rather book off sick, go to the doctor when I've got no business doing so. But if corporate SA is menopause inclusive, then women are able to say that, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with. I need to be able to find ways of showing up for work and still be navigating this. If I've got a presentation, can I print an extra copy and give it to my boss? So that if I'm having that buffering moment, then he steps in to cover me. And we talk about things like your hot flash. It's winter right now. People are bundled up in jackets and everything. And when a hot flash happens, the first thing that you want to do normally is to unlayer. You want to open the window. You want to crank up the aircon and all of that. Then if you are in an shared space, then if the organization is menopause inclusive, then you're able to talk about it, or maybe even swap desks to say that, you know what, let me move closer to the window so that when it happens, then I'm able to. If you are struggling with things like incontinence or having to go to the bathroom endlessly, then you can say that, can I have a desk that is closer to the door to go to the bathroom, instead of having the desk that is there in the corner? Then you have to walk up and down, you're being seen by everybody. And then start asking, mara manje lona Naomi Campbell, you know? So then at least you've got that liberty. Irregular periods, they happen anytime. 1 minute you're sitting, you're fine, presenting to maybe your male colleague, your male boss, and then it happens. And then the shame and the embarrassment. Yeah. But if this is normalized, then you are able to say, this is what has happened. And the organization has made sure that men are part of these conversations. Then they have the right empathy, compassion to handle this moment as it happens. So the symptoms are really, really, really broad. You look at things like vertigo, loss of balance. We used to think when we see Abo Gogo, when they're getting up, and then they have to regroup. I became that one person at some point, and my gym, we had stairs to get to the studio. And then suddenly, it was like, when it first started, I used to think that I'm imagining it. But then I had to really use the handrail sometimes because I'm like, otherwise, ngizovuka phansi lapha. So I need to be able to, as we speak about the loss of focus, concentration, it becomes a thing. I, at some point, had to drop out even out of a cause because I'll be sitting there, see lips moving and everything, but everything is just going in. It's like poof, like steam disappear. And then eventually I'm like, who am I kidding? This is not going to happen. So once we know of all of these symptoms, like driving anxiety also. I've spoken to quite a number of couples. They say, the fights that we have with our partners because we're always like in a panicky state. And when I say we, it's not everybody because symptoms are relative to each one differently. But with driving anxiety, someone will tell you, like, my husband doesn't want to drive with me anymore because I'm almost like a passenger driver. And that's when also I say it's an opportunity for some of the insurance companies to be more supportive to women, to say that we are aware that this is some of the struggles that can come with this life phase. Let us support by being menopause, inclusive.
I worry about what you raised earlier. When you referenced Utando Pado, and you mentioned, I'm not sure which lady you mentioned, the idea of having too much information to a point where it drives you crazy. The lady that said that she's kind of glad it was a blessing that she didn't know because she didn't know if she had the mental strength. We have this issue now of paranoia. We had it with lockdown, where anyone that sneezes, coughs, we're like, yeah, baba, yeah. So now you start worrying, hey, I was feeling off balance yesterday. Hey, I had, and you're like, hey, calm down. Guys, I think I worry about that as a concern. Number two, we had a lady here 2 years ago, one of our first guests, Sismandi Samashiro. She was here like, hey, Gashisa, hot flashes, I'm feeling menopausal.
I've got that clip. It was an aha moment for me.
It was funny and it was cute, but at that time, compared to, let's say, today, very ignorant. We don't know what that is. We don't know what she means. Even hot flashes, he ain't gonna look. I'm having hot flashes, and your mom and dad like, for us to understand what it means and where it comes from. Menopause, the meno on the menopause is for menstruation.
Yeah.
The pause is meant to be for stop. So it's like menstruation stop. We joke about it now, and women take a lot of offense. When, let's say, you're presenting, you come into the workspace, you're a bit grouchy. It's like, hey, is it that time of the month? Is it an offensive thing to say? Because if we're asking men to be more sensitive, it could be something like, hey, can we please have a chat? I'm like, I just wanted to find out, are you okay? Is it maybe menstruation, or are you going through menopause? And then you're like, excuse me, what the hell are you talking about? Because yes, men would bring it up maybe in not nice ways. They would, it's that time of the month. But from an inclusive perspective, should we be actually getting men to be sensitive to, she might be going through that time of the month, and this is how you should be treating it. And now that you know that from ages, maybe even 35, 45, 55, please understand that this could be happening. Hey, do you have menopause? Keep it to yourself and just be like, it might be menopause. She might be menstruating. So let me be extra sensitive. Let me help. If I see she's getting dizzy, don't be like, how? Xoli, what's going on? Be like, hey, Xoli, I can take over if you want. I don't know if you want a glass of water, and be like, maybe she's going through something.
It is very important to have men as part of these conversations because, as I said, that they coexist with us. And they also need to know how to be able to best support women. And to do that, as you say, you need to have a bit of a basic knowledge, what is happening during that moment. Like others have asked, when you get a hot flash, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
What is happening, And obviously others want to even understand it in the scientific or biological way. What's happening internally? I always make an example. It's almost like a broken thermostat. Kahlele. Hence, the body is sending this message to say she needs to be cooled down because like sweat is supposed to cool us down.
Sure.
But then because of the estrogen and everything that is happening, so and that is why even things like the stress can trigger a hot flash. Hence, it's important to be mindful of your thoughts because kugaso ngaphakathi kuhaywire. And manner of approach is very important. And as you said, that if you notice something, how you bring it up plays a huge role. If you come and approach a woman like privately to say, maybe you've observed this, you've said that, how they respond is probably going to be more positive because of that dignity that you've afforded them. But if it's just mentioned like in front of everybody and in a maybe degrading or jokey manner, then how they respond is really gonna be not a pleasant thing. But it is very important. And also just asking, what kind of support do you need from me? Because we are all different and our preferences of support are not the same. And I'm saying that I once, when I was speaking about it in my workplace, I was telling my male leader at that time that this is the phase of life that I'm going through. And his initial response was like, oh, no, you'll be fine. My sister went through it. You understand? That is flippant. Like, how about like that compassion? Let me hear some more. How would you like me to best support you? And so it is important, as you mentioned, that, men will never be pregnant, but they know how to support a pregnant woman because the conversations and the information is out there. If they see a pregnant woman trying to lift something heavy,
even if you're getting into a taxi, we move out of the way.
And all of that. When she speaks about morning sickness, you get it. Even
100%.
though
even wings. So I'm thinking of taxis. When a pregnant woman's in a taxi, the taxi will stop anywhere on the road if she needs to use the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is why even the menopause conversations are supposed to be a thing because, the levels of support normally is not even in the biggest of things. As you're saying, should I open the window? We did with Mandisa. Do we stop recording? Are we continuing? Just that level. I don't know. I don't get it. But let me, bring that human element to it. And yes, because menopause has been linked to so much negativity, most women, the moment they think menopause, they don't even want to know about it because like I am inviting it. Firstly, like some have read the book and like, I was reading the book, then I started feeling hot flashes and then I put it away. It's like, I'm like inviting it to me and all of that. And some women also have, like this other one, HUJ was saying to me, I was almost maybe in denial about my perimenopause for a number of years, and it did not help also that my doctor was not also thinking it could be it up until my husband came across you on social media. And then he came to me and one day I was like, maybe it's menopause. How I responded, like, no, it cannot be menopause, because firstly, who is delivering that? It's a partner. Then most women don't want their partners viewing them in that sense because menopause is like over the hill, value add depreciator. But she says that she had to like have a conversation with herself. And then obviously she did check me out and fast track. She was anyway perimenopausal. But it took her husband finding out. And then she says that he had to have the right approach. But still with the right approach, the name menopause is still
got a very
carries
negative stigma.
So much. That is why it's also important that we look at the positives that come with it, especially because we live in a society that promotes, as I said, youthfulness, ageism is a thing and all of that. We see on Spaces sometimes. I did a live on Tuesday, and I was speaking about that, the life phases, ageism, and menopause positives. I think sometimes you see some of the celebrities when they're wearing maybe spam shorts, and a person thinks that maybe they are cursing them or making them feel less sad. It's like, it's Gokwana menopause. What business does she have dressing like this? And it's like, we need to move away from thinking that there is something degrading about menopause, because now it's becoming now the next word to try and belittle or dim women's lights, when it's just a phase of life and we can still try.
Menopause is as natural as going to the bathroom, is as natural as menstruation, is as natural as anything. It's something that if you're blessed as a woman to get to a certain age, every woman will go through. So there's no, a 20-year-old girl looking at a 57-year-old woman say, "Ooh, phela wena une menopause." It's like, Siswami,
No.
I used to be 20. You're going to come here. So I don't understand why you're saying what you're saying, because it's a phase of life. That's all it is.
Ultimately.
And then the sensitivity, I think in my head, I'm trying to link it with pregnancy. I just don't know if it's fair, because some women might take offense to be like, if a woman's going through menopause and you find out, or to assume, let's say we have like a rule of thumb that any woman over the age of 55, treat her like a pregnant woman. Move out of the way. I mean, we've lost chivalry now, and sadly for some of us, this is why we kind of sometimes fight against women empowerment. Because we're like, some of the things that we want to give you, you guys are like, I don't need you to get up off a chair for me. Do you think I'm a cripple? It's like, yes, it's not even that. I'm trying to be sensitive and you're taking it in the wrong way. But that sensitivity, and then very importantly, as a counter to even what I'm saying, you saying, just ask someone, what support would you like? And hope that they'll be honest. And I don't need any support. What do you mean? It's like, okay, if you don't need any, then it's fine. But if I see anyway, just again, ask.
Yeah.
Without questioning and without saying, but I asked earlier. If you need any support, please let me know.
Because, my partner used to say that, especially in summer, he will spot a hot flashing woman a mile.
Sure.
Because, like, trying to open the freezers in the store as if they're looking for something. And then, no, you just want to cool down,
Never went back.
And he will say that to some, he will, like, as a empathy thing to say that, you know what, I'm knowledgeable about this. I get you, And it's like this, they will receive it in different ways. Others are like, oh, how do you know about this? And then it strikes a conversation. Others, they try to compose themselves because, no, we don't talk about such things. Why are you even mentioning that, So it becomes a bit of a tricky line.
One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite happy movies is This Is 40. About this couple that's going into age 40 and what that comes with kids. And one of the scenes is of a young boy in primary school. The mother of a girl in the same class is swearing at this boy. The boy starts crying. The woman's like, I'm sorry for swearing at you, to a little boy. And the boy's like, oh no, don't worry. My mom's also going through menopause. And this woman blows a fuse. What do you mean going through I'm young and... So yeah, we really need to kill the stigma. You sent me a couple of questions. 1, 2 of them are very, very important for today's conversation. And look, for anyone who's going to be listening, watching this, they also need to understand this is still just an intro to what we're speaking about. Like there's tests, like Usisi said, there's close to 100 symptoms now, which we only touched on a few. There's male support that's needed, educating even young boys from the whole journey of a girl. There's a lot. You raised this question, and I'm not sure if you're comfortable to share your personal experience. You'll decide, or if you want to speak generally. The impact of menopause on romantic relationships, marriage, and especially women like you in a situation where you're married, you don't have kids, and now you find out I actually can't have kids anymore. And up you've got a man who's like, I want kids, I want my son, etc. What is the impact on romantic relationships and marriages? And one of the questions you had sent that you wanted us to cover on is things like menopause potentially leading to fights, maybe even violence in relationships.
Menopause in relationships is such a broad subject. Firstly, let's look at it when it happens before the natural or expected age.
Yeah. Sorry, are you still fine with your tea?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I don't drink my tea hot. So
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a hot flash. Sorry.
It's a combination.
Pop menopause jokes.
No, and sometimes you'll find me sitting with both hot and cold, actually.
Because you never know.
Because then you can like whatever I'm preferring.
Sure.
When menopause happens before time, firstly, what it does to you as a woman psychologically. Because, you just got in this news. What does it mean to me? Especially if you're not married, if you're completely single, there's not even somebody. What conversations I'm going to be having moving forward on my dates or the people that I am interested in. It comes with identity crisis, for example, because, this phase is supposed to be for older women. People that have had their children, they've gone through all of those things. And then you look on the other side. I always make an example with myself. My friends were having children at that time in their 30s, whether it's baby number 1, baby number 2. Me, I'm dealing with the old women's kind of phase of life. I can't really talk to them. They don't get what I'm going through.
Sure.
And then you try to speak to the older women. They're like, we are Papa Wen. Why you want to talk about old people
things?
Because then you have to convince them. It's like, really, I am going through it. Because most of them also, they don't know about premature menopause or early menopause. They come from the school that believes menopause only happens when a certain age. And then also culturally, most women, when they reach menopause, they can participate in certain rituals, certain processes, ngokwesintu ne. And me being a curious self, then I had reached menopause, right? Because when you reach menopause, the factory closes. Then that last phase where you're going to be for the rest of your life is post-menopause. That's where you're going to stay. So old women, normally then they reach post-menopause, then they get entrusted with all of this, even sometimes go big zizu and all of that, like the wisdom and all of that. So I asked them, Guti, since I've reached then post-menopause at 38, 39, doesn't mean that I can sit now with the elders.
I'm an elder.
Because then if we're looking at it, they'll be like, no. As much as you went through this phase of life, but age-wise, you cannot be part of those. But those are the dynamics that come with the premature menopause and early menopause, like things that you need to navigate. Then basically you're adding the dating part also. Personally, when it happened, I had gone through a journey of abstinence for quite a number of years. I was like, you know what? I'm hanging up these boots. I need to rediscover myself. I needed to understand so much, because most of the time when you start having sex, most of us, it's just because you can. But you do not understand what sex is about, why you're having sex and all of that. It's all about like a physical thing more than anything, And also the magazines, I always say, they play such a huge role. Magazines, social media in this day and age, but back then, Cosmopolitan, you look at the cover, 10 different styles, sex this
5
and that
ways
and
to,
that.
to please your man.
So you
Everything
do
is
these things,
hypersexualized.
you understand?
Yeah.
But then I reached that point of the turning around to say, good, I need to rediscover so much for myself because I fell into by the way of doing things. And so with the journey of abstinence, that's when also even irregular periods, when they were happening, I kind of missed them because I was not even thinking about any pregnancy scare because I'm not having sex, right, during that time. Because normally that's the first thing for most women, especially when we're that age. Missed periods. Pregnancy.
Yeah.
But then since I'm not having sex, I just missed it. Because also we don't like periods, most of us as women. They're like a bit of an inconvenience. Because like the PMS, I can't wear this, I can't do this, and. So I think I was enjoying my life so much when the irregular periods were happening. Hence, I missed that symptom when it happened. Then when I found out what was happening, and then I was also ready to date. Let me fast track. Before I knew, there was this one guy that I was getting to know. I was in the thick of hot flushing, night sweats and all of that. So the one time we're sitting, cuddling, Nandi, and then I get a hot flush. And then he's like, why are you so clammy? And I don't have an answer because also I don't know what's going on. So I had to just quickly think of something. I'm like, I think I'm coming down with flu. And then that was that. We moved on. And then it did not work out also because I was, as I said, emotional, anxiety, and because he doesn't know me before the transition, he's like, what's going on with you?
She's
drama queen.
This chick is crazy. I just met her. She's crazy.
And also because now I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know how to explain to him because, dude, I also don't know what's going on. This is not me. I'm just like all over the place. The opposite side of the spectrum, dating when I knew what was happening. I'm informed now. I'll bring my fan showing up for the date so that if it happens.
Is this for the hot flushes?
Yeah.
Nice.
Fans for different outfits, and all of that.
Style.
And then how you dress now. So the conversations that you have with him, firstly, you're able to tell him, good, dude, if you see me suddenly glistening, I'm getting a personal summer because of this phase of life. And then that is at the superficial level. But then you need to also have those conversations, Guti. If we were to pursue anything, you and me, what's your stance on having children? Because effectively ivalile on my side. And those are some of the conversations I also had to have with my partner. And as much as I knew that I did not want to have children, but you cannot deprive somebody of that right, of that privilege, of that choice. You need to hear from them where they are. Do they want to have children? Do they not want to have children? And all of that. Since 2016, I had been posting about my journey. So if you were interested in me and you were on my timeline, obviously you had an idea. And I will even write my future husband letters, and I will draw him, and I will do all of those things. And one of the prayers that I would put out there was saying that, Lord, may I please also meet a man that has kids that are grown-up teenagers, not babies. Because as I said, that me, I could not picture myself with the full-on responsibility of having to take care of children. So all of those things I had always put out there. But if I meet a person, then I will have that conversation with them, because people always believe that some of the things that we put on social media are not a representation of our true self. But me, everything that I put out there, best believe is exactly who I am. But then obviously also it allows for further in-depth conversations, because then you need to find out that if we're to make a go of this and then we end up getting married and you say that you don't want to have children, how do you navigate you changing your mind and suddenly saying that I want to have children? Does it mean the marriage is off? Are you suddenly going to think, oh, team, it's your sign to take a second wife when we never?
Of course. It's a sign for his team.
Because
this Kokwana is going to give me a thumbs up. It's like, go fetch a 20-year-old. The family needs to expand.
So when we started the conversation, you were not a polygamist. You said you're fine. So now you
I like that you're not having periods. It means it's party time.
That's one of the positives,
all
right?
the time.
I always say that's one of the positives, because you do not have to be waiting for anything. Like anytime is tea time, we getting it done anywhere. You can wear anything and. But under the same breath, also I did acknowledge, because it's something that I spoke about even this week, because some people, any time of the month is tea time, even during that time. But most of us,
when you spoke about dry vagina. Wow.
And then I told you that for some also.
Then it also goes up.
And also that's another thing that we need to speak about, because there is other ways to make sure that you are able to, if it's vaginal dryness, your lubrication effects, how do you take care of that? What are you changing? One of the symptoms that I said was, for me at some point, almost like that loss of sensation. So like your partner is touching you. Normally he knows that if he touches you, 1, 2, 3, say on. Then suddenly you're like, hey, dude, I can watch paint dry. I can do budget while when you're thinking it's getting me going. So I had to rediscover my body, what gets me going, so that I'm able to communicate that to him. Hence, it is important to remove the shame around sex, because people don't like talking openly about sex.
It's sad, man. And look, sex education is being introduced at schools, and it's a huge red flag, and a lot of parents are upset. And I understand why. As a person who's open-minded and wants their kids to learn, it's because we just don't trust the schooling system, and we don't trust them to have the sensitivity that's needed. And because sex education is meant to be educational to a point where sex ed doesn't mean kids are having sex at 14. Sex ed means kids are not having having sex at 17, because they're like, oh, but sex leads to STIs and pregnancy and and you're like, oh, so at least like Leslie is teaching you guys something.
Because I meant it in the sense of couples having conversations together about their sex life. Not in that sex education, because yes, that one needs to come with certain boundaries to it.
No, I was
Kids
just
need to
saying,
know,
Uti,
yes.
if we were taught properly at school, by the time you get to couple, you're not scared to speak about
because
these
we
things.
already know also the whole like female anatomy ganjani, but some men don't know. Some women like I've got an open letter here in the book. It's a whole chapter. Open letters to men, to myself, to society, to other women, to children, even to my vagina, because
Vagina monologues.
like dear vagina, because I mean, as you go through life, our vaginas, they do change also in a number of ways, but we don't talk about those things. Some women don't even look at their vaginas. It's like, you need to know what your vagina looks like. I mean, you can't expect other people to be able to describe what your vagina looks like for yourself. You need to know for yourself first, so that if they say, then you're like, you understand, you're able to contribute to that. But yes.
I'm too young for this conversation. I'm just listening.
You're going to have to put a disclaimer then when we get to this part.
No disclaimer. I'm just listening. Hey.
I told you, TMI, choose me.
Nothing wrong. We're here to educate the people.
Like, we go
Dear
everywhere.
Vagina.
Yeah.
Dear Virginia.
Because that's even that word, like even in Zulu, that word, it's like, because, you know.
Please say it.
Eh?
Please say it.
What is it in your Zulu language?
No, please say it. There's a reason why I'm asking, right? Because already I'm funny about it. We speak about the importance of education. You spoke about generational conversations, older people, younger people. We spoke about the smaller chapters which will grow in terms of the African aspect of... The reality is, you and I can speak. I think we're almost of the same generation. Even words like uqonyiwe, usuyajola, you know,
even
they have such a
word is like,
yeah. So I need you to say the words, because
like, wow.
If we're going to be comfortable to say vagina, if we're going to be comfortable to speak about menstruation, about sex,
penis,
but we can't say the vernac. Those of us who are claiming to be some type of activist, open-minded, but thina sisiqola asiyazi lento nge-English, cela usitshele ngesiZulu. Mama yazi ngesiZulu, and now you're making it uncomfortable for them as well. You know, so I need you to say the word I need you to say the word ngesiZulu.
You know what? I did not even
close
know
my
it.
eyes. My mother might watch this episode.
Let me close my ears, then when I say Madlala, I'm gonna say it. You'll correct me though if it's the right one, ne?
How will I know?
How you Zulu yourself, boss. Like it's in this. I guess in different places there's different words. Somebody said to me, "Good is inguza angaz."
Awazi
to be sure.
Ukule embali nase. What's the other place?
But angithi awashiwo la magama.
What's the other place?
Enhlazatshe. But awashiwo la magama.
Manje, you're asking me. How am I supposed to know?
Because maybe when uke walizwa somewhere else, you can confirm. So the first time that I heard it, it was like almost like a slap on the face. You understand? Because
also
like,
the sound of it just
was like, what? But then I had to have the conversation. But if it's the word for it,
let me crack a joke. Let me crack a little joke. So there's a place in the eastern.
Yes.
There's a place in the Eastern Cape called Inguza.
Yeah.
And I remember Jacob Zuma reading this town. Inguza. Jeez, what a word. So. Look, we're meant to be the people making these conversations more comfortable. So my understanding, just very quickly, the male penis ngesiZulu, other people say it in their own languages, ipipi, umthondo. And then there can be other variations, colloquial terms for it. Yeah. The vagina is inguza, and then there's... those are more slang, more imomozi, and those things. But inguza... of which for some people it can be the vagina or the anus, depending on. In the interest of language and the evolution of language, these are some of the things we can also change. Because, I mean, rappers will go from vagina to pussy, which was pussycat, but you can change it to vajayjay, my cookie, whatever. Not if we feel some of these words don't work. Because I know even with little boys, if you've got a little boy, you'll be like, itotolozi. Or with a girl, you'll be like...
My mom used to call it pipiza, my one.
Your one, pipiza.
Yeah.
So we can come up with words that maybe feel more comfortable. Even if you're speaking to an adult man, you can be like, bo baba ngithi namatotolozi.
Because you guys
but it's like I'm trying to introduce ukuthi to what you're saying, ngifuna ngibize ngani,
ngibizwe ngawe.
ubudoda benu, whatever you want to call it, so that we can have these conversations even in vernac. But yeah, my understanding of a vagina, ingoza, a penis is umtondo officially. But people will correct, and then other people maybe add in their languages.
Because even the menopause word in Zulu, I mean, it's one of the things that I asked and I really struggled to get it. That is after I had seen there's some translated research paper. They just called it ubufazi. And to me,
Ubufazi.
I was like, but that's such
womanhood.
a lazy word.
Ubufazi is womanhood.
Yes. And then even in Sutu, they translated and said, sisadi. I'm like, no, but as you were saying, like Ikeke, Momozi, those are kind of, even went as far as calling Gamaimai. Because I thought Gutabo Mama Baga they might have
Those are the real
right. Sure. They did not have the right word for it. Even explaining what menopause is, I had to start explaining the life stages. Good like intombazane, oktomba, yakulelwa. And then this last phase. And it's like, hi, as eating banbani, maybe zoyazi, and I did not come right. And somebody was like, oh no, maybe it's because this was not a thing, like it was not a life phase. And I'm like, but that phase has always been there.
It's always been
but
there,
it's just the right word for it. Because I mean, Japanese have got a beautiful word for it called konengi.
Konengi.
Which is like second spring, like a rebirth.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a rebirth of sorts.
Because most women also do come into their own during this phase of life. And that's when sometimes people look at them differently. Because I want to preppy age, wow, go because they change maybe their style, they pursue new goals, they change their careers, they pursue their bucket list and all of that, because they are really now saying that I've lived my life. Maybe I'm raising children, being this responsible sibling to my siblings, being this wife, but now I'm living for myself. I'm prioritizing myself. And sometimes then it's met with like, what's going on with you? But it's, as you said, that it's a blessing. And also you mentioned that it comes with the wisdom of understanding that I can be everything to everybody, but I need to start with self. And women start living unapologetically also for themselves. They suddenly speak up for themselves. They speak their minds. And it's like,
hey, boy.
Because he used to be so maybe so timid and all of that.
I don't know if I finished my point earlier, man. And I don't even know if it was before we started. The problem that colonialism brought in disturbing Africans. Because the reality is, for a lot of things, we had terms. Not only did we have terms, we had lifestyles around them. We spoke about menstruation and how girls would, you're excused from certain chores because they understand you're going through something. I can only imagine there were terms and for menstruation and other things as well. And we've lost it now. But in the spirit of we're here now, we have to make the best of it. If it means we take menopause and we create a Zulufied version of it, so be it. We don't have to dig in and go find, because we've already found what this thing is and call it our own, whatever word we wanna call it. I think we have to shut this down. You didn't answer me on the violence, but there was also something I wanted to say around language. I lost it. Got brain fog. Must be the meno.
Is it? It's not contagious.
Menopause. I wanted to ask as well if, from everything you've said, no, these are the other questions. Some of the symptoms you're raising, men experience them. And I wonder if there's like a male equivalent of menopause. Number one. Number two, is menopause a condition? And if it's not a condition, should we be treating it like a condition? Not for the reason of creating like a deeper stigma, but to be like, oh, she's going through menopause. You're like, oh, snap. My mom is going through that, or my partner is going through that. So I understand. Let me actually go speak to her and ask, hey, are you sorted? How can we make things better? If we were to treat, I'm just listening to things like forgetfulness, hot flushes. There were other things. You spoke about the psychological issues. It sounds like usuya gula. So should we treat it as a medical condition? What was my other question? Men and the symptoms.
Yeah, I don't know what else.
What did I ask first? Anyways, so whatever. Sorry. The violence.
Okay. So
the violence
when
in
it comes
partners
to
and the failure and how menopause basically destroys relationships. I think is the question.
intimate partner violence can happen in some cases due to menopause. I mean, we've spoken about things like your vaginal dryness, loss of libido.
Which would you obviously cheating?
So sometimes some men, especially if they're not clued up, they can think that why you're suddenly not attracted to me, why you suddenly don't want sex, it means that you're getting it somewhere else. Some, they might even look at how maybe you're living your life, where you're working. You used to mention Penuel, your colleague. So maybe you understand.
Change your dress code. Now you wear bum shorts.
I mean, there's women that will say, yo, I'll do anything. If it means I have to do laundry, go 11 ebusuku, so that alale.
And I don't
by
need
the
to
time
be there
I
for
get
him.
to bed, he's sleeping because really I cannot. But the moment though, hence we say it's important to discover ourselves, because then the moment you know what's happening, then you know how to get it going. For example, if maybe at night you're tired and your interest, because the mind plays a huge role also. So if you're part of the 5 a.m. club or 3 a.m. club, then change when you're having sex. Maybe you find that like you're well rested, then start your day by having sex in that sense. But some
Yes, you got it all this morning.
Yes, then you show up, so you're taken care and everybody is taken care of. But if men are not clued up about this also, then it is quick to make it about them and take it as a rejection.
Yeah.
And then as we spoke about the other emotional symptoms, you're moody, you're irritable. So at the moment, you understand? And it's like, hi, man, and then he might maybe going through his own things or whatever. We can never justify why people lose it to the point of resorting to physical, but it might be lead to that to some people. But if conversations are had, then a man can understand that it's got nothing to do with me. Actually, she's just purely going through this. Then we look at like diet again, as I said, like certain foods help with lubrication. There is lubricants that you can buy. Like you can read erotica, find ways to get your, because sometimes just because you're not thinking about sex, it does not mean that your body is not ready for it. Like your partner, you can, like as much as you think you're tired, but the moment he touches you, then you're on. But all of this is through open conversation. And then you asked about men, because some of the symptoms are...
Before the men's symptoms, I'm going to ask a controversial question, and I'm sorry, but I'm putting it on you because you're a woman and you're here. Men have asked, and we need to raise it because we have an African history, apparently. Do you think a man having a second woman, is tembu, a side chick, could lead to a lot of diffusion of stress at home, pressure on you, violence, fighting? I mean, if he wants to get busy and your brain is not there, having a second woman where he goes, he comes home, he's happy. Hey, all he's saying, hey, what's going on? It's a thing that I'll tell you men speak about all the time. They're like, no, stabilize. But from a female perspective, we're not condoning polygamy, polyamory. I'm just asking as potential solutions, because I'll say this about rape as an example, and rape is very complicated. But I've said to guys before, before we get to the extremity of rape, there's something that happens with testosterone and men being aroused, horny, whatever. You're aroused, it's 2:00 in the morning, you're texting someone, now you're speeding to go get some. You're going to the club, you're horny, you're like, sambe. You're with the chick, you guys are both naked, you're horny. She's like, no, I'm not ready. You're like, no, whatever. And I'm like, sometimes for that clarity, just go to the bathroom and release. Before you go holler at a girl at 3:00 in the morning, go to the bathroom, release. You might come back and be like, hey man, I actually don't know what is going on. Let me sleep. That's masturbation as a solution to lower, I don't know if it's lower testosterone, but to lower whatever heat that you're on. So I'm asking in terms of diffusing certain stresses. Women would be like, yeah, but maybe a woman must also get a second man to diffuse. Just to diffuse stress, do you think it's something we should consider talking about?
We should talk about that, because as you were mentioning about a man, then eventually like having to masturbate. It's the same thing like in winter. There's this phenomenon that winter bantu bafuna ingubo enamehlo, like standard. And we've always said, good, you know what, step back, because some of the consequences for it are not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, get a hot water bottle, dress warm, like distract yourself. Because in the morning, you're like, actually, you're right. I was just caught up in that moment, you know. So when it comes to whether men must have or should consider a second wife or having a side chick, I think each to their own.
Have the conversation.
Each to their own.
What do you think will help? Prostitutes, I don't support. Maybe I don't even support whatever, but how can I help you in the conversation? Sometimes I don't want it. I can wake up at 5 a.m. I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. So what's the solution? Masturbate. Now I must masturbate. And then similarly, the woman will also be like, you know, there's times when I wake up at 2 and I want something and you're tired. So what are the solutions? I was just asking if that is worth having a conversation, especially as Africans.
We should have those conversations because, I mean, there has been women that have gladly said, please go find.
I don't want to have kids
somebody
anymore.
Else.
You're too demanding sexually.
Go find somebody
Go and
else.
find a young girl on the energy because I don't.
Even for sex. Because, I mean, even the concept of 3/4 beds, mostly skule, gogo nomkhulu, double bed, they hit a certain age. How single beds, manjo,
that sounds like heaven.
You know?
No, by the way, I love that. The idea of you and your partner having separate beds.
Yeah.
Oh.
I also love it
climb
now.
you at night.
No, now I also
I don't get a full
now.
night's rest because umuntu manje
even goes like numb because like ulelela the whole night and all of that. So it is. I still maintain that with everything, it's important to have your own conversations because years ago also I never would have said that. Actually, I do understand why having separate beds can be a thing.
Sure.
Because I mean, blankets on, blankets off, night sweat, we are shalo munye, we are kodola ngapha, and then we are disturber, the endless bathroom trips and all of that. So it is important to live our own truths at every phase of our lives, as long as it makes sense for Wena. Because I mean, there is people that have said, good, you know what? I can even go as far as suggest who he must go to, you understand? Because then it's just purely that sexual release, and it's an arrangement that we find with it.
Okay. Sorry, men and the symptoms.
Okay.
The one is vitiligo. No, not vitiligo. The imbalance. Vertigo, sorry. The vertigo, men will have that. Some of us, even at our young age, sometimes if you... What's being on your haunches for long enough? By the time you get up here, you're so dizzy. Psychologically, brain fog, loss of concentration. Men, maybe they'll have hot flushes, etc. Do men go through menopause? Have you heard of maybe that men have something similar? Because I know the quality of our sperm goes down. We don't speak about it as men. We should. Quality of sperm,
erectile dysfunction,
about men's clinic and the like. Maybe it's linked, and we're not having a similar conversation of if women are going into menopause. Amadoda at this age are also going through. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Medically, they don't like calling it male menopause because there is andropause
for men.
Yeah.
It's called andropause.
Andropause. Okay. But they don't want to say that it's the equivalent because it's not exactly the same.
Sure.
With menopause, every woman is going to go through menopause if they live long enough. But when it comes to andropause, not every man is going to go through it. And also, its onset is not the same as women. You know, with us, when we transition into menopause.
Sure.
It is known, but with men, it's not as
gradual.
Yeah. And also, we didn't talk about men losing their muscle mass. You continue to go to gym, but suddenly, like your muscles are just losing their definition because you're losing muscle mass, the belly, and all of that. So it is part of the andropause.
Yeah. I'm seeing depression as well here.
Yes.
And erectile dysfunction and the like. It's worth looking up. Male menopause, andropause.
But we hardly
loss of
speak
testosterone.
About, yes.
Okay, and then there was one more. Symptoms in men.
We spoke about that.
Condition, sorry. Menopause is a condition.
Is it a condition now?
Yeah.
That's still up in the air, whether it should be looked at as a condition or not, especially also when it comes to in the professional space, because some women have wanted to report it in terms of like they feel discriminated against. But then how are you discriminated against? Is it a disability now? Because there is also talks to look at that. Is it a disability? Because, I mean, if symptoms are looked at to continue for so many years, then it's something that you're coexisting with it for a long period of time.
Sure.
Then it should be looked at as a disability. But that conversation is really still up in the air. But in the UK and in the US, because those countries have been in the forefront of the menopause conversations, women have taken organizations into tribunals, almost like CCMA, to fight against feeling discriminated upon. And they've won those cases.
Yeah.
But women in general, they don't like menopause to be looked at as a condition still. Because then if it's a condition, then it means that I am sick, kahle. And they're saying, but then it comes with limitations and all of that. But because it is a phase of life, then they don't see the need for it to be called a sickness, to be called a condition. And that's why sometimes you look at then things like your hormone replacement treatment, which is, we spoke about, but we didn't get into details in how you can coexist and try to treat some of these symptoms. And the first approach normally is looking at your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I spoke about the role of nutrition. Normally, we taught to eat food for enjoyment more than to understand the role that it plays into our, Sugar. We love sugar normally, and we've been taught that fat is the worst culprit. But sugar is really
It's the worst drug on earth that we're not speaking about.
But it's positioned for children, for babies before they can even speak. When you're at the supermarkets, you know the aisles, all of these, whatever that appeals to them, the sweets and all of that and the colors, they're able to point out those things. So look at cutting down sugar, hydration, meaning water, cutting down on alcohol, cutting on smoking if you smoke. Because, for example, when menopause happens as before time, they try to find out the cause, whether it's genetic, it's autoimmune diseases. They ask, do you smoke? And because it plays a huge role. And then there is the unknown reasons also for some women. So cut down on alcohol. Yes, most women, they think especially wine, it's what keeps them mellow and it's going to help this. But then they're flashing sometimes through it. You're having your wine, then you trigger the hot flashes and all of that. Stress management, our quality of sleep, spending time outdoors, the role of sunlight, vitamin D, walking, grounding ourselves, the wisdom of the olden days. Hence, maybe they did not make too much of a big deal back then because they were living as holistically as possible, unlike this generation of ours that we have to normally pop things to get some of the benefits that are
100%.
freely available. And then if the symptoms are really so bad, like you feel like you cannot, then you can explore, or then there's also the supplements, where there's things like your black cohosh, the red clover, and all of those things. And obviously, we know that when it comes to natural supplements, science sometimes will say that they're not fully tested and all of that. But then we can say, go to Goga Mai, you can get Mbiza for this, Mbiza for that, and it will get you as right as rain. So all of it, you need to make a decision that speaks best for you, because that's one of my missions to go there, to find out, because for hot flashes, what would you suggest? Maybe you'll find that there's something that they are using. We don't know about this because we want to go to the pharmacist to get all of these drugs. And then there is, as a last resort, it used to be called hormone replacement treatment, HRT. Now they've changed the name to MHT, which is menopause hormone treatment. Some they say it's because they've realized that nothing can fully replace the actual hormone, hence they changed the name. So that is the other option to look to. And it's got its own also controversies and side effects and all of that, which is why we need to be educated as much as possible about it. Then you make an informed decision. Yet again, it goes back to understanding also your family genetics and all of that due to some of the side effects. So if you look at it, then you have to take HRT. It means that it's a condition, because then you get to be prescribed this. So it's up in the air. But for me, I don't look at it as a condition. I still choose to look at it as a phase of life. And even if you are taking, you choose to go the route of HRT, but it is a phase of life.
Let's shut this episode down. I'd like to thank you for coming to see us. Please may you pass your book. I just want to give it a shout out again. Where can people find this? And how much is it, currently on the 28th of June, 2024?
Okay. Firstly, I'm self-published, so the book is either available through me, KaMadlala. I am on social platforms, Facebook, KaMadlala, Instagram, Mask Off with Xoli. And then...
they can also holler at me.
Holler at you.
I'll also link them.
Then I also have essay books online.
Sure.
You can buy for the people that say that, you know what, we just want to do it online straight like that. Then it's 450
450 South African rands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also have a private Facebook group called Mzansi Menopause Conversations, because as much as I talk about this in open platforms, but I realized that some women wanted like a space where they can just...
Sure.
But even that, because of the subjects, mostly I'm the one that is leading the conversations. Sure. And then they still respond via DM or WhatsApp.
Which is okay. Shout out to the DMs, man. I just know there's various pages. There's one with something chef, I think, where people, whether it's fake or real, and maybe we need to encourage more of these, especially for the more taboo subjects, to be like, send me a DM. I'll call you anonymous, Anonza, and then we'll put your thing here, and then people will comment freely, knowing that it's, you're hidden. The Perimenopausal Globetrotte, turning my premature menopause lemons into lemonade, by KaMadlala. I want to read the back here. The moment Xoli discovered the name of what she had been struggling with for years in her early 30s, she vowed that none of it should have been in vain. Upon introspection, she concluded that she went through premature menopause so that she could raise awareness, demystify taboos, and combat the shame and stigma through her lived experience. What she shares proves to be very different from textbook knowledge or hearsay. Armed with her own journey, she sets forth unmasking premature menopause, menopause overall, and shares thoughts on mental health, navigating romantic relationships, and the nuances of showing up at work. She lets you in on coexisting with this elephant, in inverted commas, that is often only explored in private spaces within the African context. Xoli lets you in on conversations with friends and colleagues, ones she has with random strangers, all the way to some of her interactions on social media platforms. In 2017, she started journaling her experience, which she initially titled Behind the Smile, an exercise she put to rest for years. In March 2022, a voice so strong told her that it was time to finish what she had started. Thus began a full-time labor of love, which became the manuscript of the Perimenopausal Globetrotte. Post-menopausal and having come full circle, she felt prepared to share her journey with the whole world through this offering. Her take is filled with authentic moments that some might deem as too much information, your TMI, but what makes her story so relatable is that she's not concerned about window dressing her experiences. This read is suitable for all genders and ages, especially Africans whose voices are lacking on this important phase of life. And then it gives you a profile. I appreciate that you've gone into herbal, organic, traditional remedies. I know, like Xoli, we've got KwaMai, we've got Faraday by the taxi rank, the markets of Imiti. In Durban, I know by the station, they have markets, and across the country. We're going to be needing moving forward, and this is not for Africans, this is for the whole world, because we've got Asian meds, we've got obviously modern medication. white, black, colored Indian people need to know that we had indigenous African solutions.
Yeah.
Some of them don't have side effects. Some of them, you eat this one thing, drink this one thing, and they heal multiple things at once. It's not by accident that a lot of Asians drink teas throughout the day. We've got rooibos in South Africa, which, if you believe in modern medicine, but you also believe in rooibos is like traditional remedies. So imagine that those traditional pharmacists, herbalists in Nyanga, are like that.
Can I add?
And I appreciate that we're having this conversation. Please add.
As we wrap up, as you talk about Chinese medicine and all of that, for example, we have to go to an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
And that thing has always been there, Zulu in Ukjoba with the porcupine stick.
With the porcupine quill, yeah.
And then we decided good to know because Kababus Banbani, like it does not look aesthetically aesthetically appeasing.
More appeasing, yeah.
Yeah. And then things like cupping. I found this article that was so interesting that Amabuto, back in the olden days, whenever they come back from war, they used to use the rhino horn to do the cupping for them so that they can release the stagnant blood and all of that. We had these things, but we look down on them.
I challenge us and I challenge our parents. My last point on that colonial disruption was the colonizers came here and disrupted. With their disruption, they didn't kill everyone who had knowledge. They didn't. We still have them today. I've gone on many long walks with my mother. And at different times, she's pointed out certain plants. And I remember as recently as maybe 3 years ago where she was explaining something and its herbal qualities or remedial qualities. And I said to her, it's so sad that you weren't taught. People like yourself and others have all this indigenous knowledge, but you don't pass it on because it's like second nature.
Yeah.
So the challenge is on us, on our parents, our grandparents, if they're still alive. And this is why contact is so important. Go visit your grandmother, your grandfather, your grand-aunts, uncles, your uncles, aunts, your parents. Sit with them and ask them some of the most mundane, basic things. Tell them stories. Watch a podcast with them, and you'll be surprised at how much they'll share. If you just spend time with them, ask a few questions, and then just listen. And because with that generation, document as much as possible so that the future generations can be like, at least they tried. Any closing words, Sis Xoli?
Oh, firstly, thank you so much for this conversation. We need to change the menopause narrative, especially here in South Africa. As you're speaking about us as African people, it is said that you still find, especially Abo Mama in some of the rural areas, not fully understanding menopause. They think that they are bewitched. They are thinking when they're getting the menopause umkhaba, they're thinking that the blood is stuck there. They want to use herbs or things to think that they're going to induce the blood to come out, not understanding Goti. Factory valile, reproductive years are done for, there's no blood that is stuck ngaphakathi. And also getting more men to be part of these conversations. I've been told that I'm going to have to mislead men if I want to get them in a room to talk about menopause, because chances are they're not going to show up because it's like,
free sex,
yes, that's what they said. Then lock the door.
And you're like, okay, we came to speak about menopause.
So I'm looking forward to you also maybe giving me suggestions on how to make this conversation more appealing to men. For example, the other time when I was on Kaya, on Denzel's show, it was interesting whether because he is a man, so he had me talking menopause, then men were more responsive to the conversation. But otherwise, mostly men don't want to be part of these conversations. And also to the younger ones, they think that it's an old person conversation. But interestingly, the youngest one that has gone through premature menopause, firstly in the UK, she was 13 going on 14. Her period just stopped. Yes. Annabelle, you can maybe look it up on Google. But Annabelle, at 14, her period stopped, no known reasons, tests have been done, nothing was found. Then with everything, I always like bringing it home. I once did a live with Dr. Sibu. She's based in KZN Egaini. I asked her, what is the youngest patient that you've had that went into premature menopause? She was 16. But we don't talk about those things. And she explained, obviously, what had led her to go into that. And in hindsight, it's something that could have been caught maybe a bit earlier, the condition that she was dealing with. But because anything that is vaginal, when you're 16, you're thinking like, if you speak about it, first thing, we're fun and everything. So she kept quiet and it kept festering. So it is important that we are all part of these conversations because we never know. Your daughter might be that one exception. So you can't say that it's not my conversation.
Yeah.
I've had young men saying that listening to you, for example, when I was at UJ, I just recognized my mom and she's always at loggerheads with my sister who is in adolescence.
Yeah.
So it's hormonal indeed. They're all clashing.
Hormone battles at the house.
Now that I know, I am able to actually be free that is informed. Same AUJ, the students, they're saying we can better support our lecturers as they're transitioning into this because I also share, like when I was doing first year, I remember my twins, she'll get hot flashes. Like the younger me, 1 minute she's fine, then next minute she's sweaty. But in hindsight, I understand. So the younger ones need to know as much as possible. And so let us continue doing our bit to change the menopause narrative, especially for African Black people, because Black women also, they transition much earlier. Their symptoms are more severe. So we cannot keep waiting for the others to be at the forefront of the conversations for us. It's up to us.
Menopause activist Xoli KaMadlala, thank you so much for joining us on the Penuel show.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Nisavukile. You didn't fall asleep in this conversation.
Bezwe free sex bavuka. Free sex.